أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد والثناء لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد
وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المظلومين سيما الحجة عجل الله تعالى فرجه الشريف ولعنة الله على أعدائهم أجمعين إلى قيام يوم الدين رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. So before we begin tonight's discussion, there's been a request to recite a prayer in Amayujib for a sister that is sick currently in the hospital, Sister Sarah bin Suhair. All of us, inshallah, on this blessed night, the second night that we're commemorating the tragedy of Imam Hussain alayhi salatu wasalam and his companions, inshallah, we'll recite all together this blessed verse 5 times. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Amma yujibul muhtarra idha da'ahu wa yakshifu as-su'. 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 أما يجيب المضطر إذا دعاه ويكشف السوء. Yes, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to inshallah give a speedy recovery to the sister inshallah and all of those who have illnesses and hardships and sicknesses across the world inshallah. As we discussed last night, I would like to spend perhaps a minute or two in the beginning of our discussion to present one issue related to ahkam or Islamic law. Tonight the issue I selected was one that was interesting to me when I was reading it, especially because this is something that is commonly seen. I won't say it's necessarily been seen here, but this is something that I have seen and experienced in other places, and it was a question that I had myself in my studies. So I was interested to see this question posed and an answer presented. We know that one of the components of prayer and supplication as a whole is that of qunut. Qunut is a part of prayer, although it is not a mandatory part of prayer, but it of course is a part of prayer. When performing qunut, there's a style that it should be performed generally, or what I want to say that the two hands are meant to connect together. Generally, they say the fingers would be closed. You have the thumb that is the only one that is not connected, and it's placed across and in front of the face during prayer. Okay. After the qunut is done though, sometimes we'll see people after they finish, they wipe their face like this after doing qunut in prayer and in other times as well outside of prayer. What ruling does something like this have? As an introduction, it should be said that in our narrations we do have this issue that within prayer and within supplication, not salah, that it is recommended after a person has performed some sort of dua, some sort of supplication, because of the blessing that this hand has, that has asked Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and made a request to Him, because it is blessed, yes, it has been said, and we have in our narrations that a person should wipe their hand and wipe their body with it. And hence, that's something that is seen in normal dua. But what about in prayer? In prayer, this question was asked to many of the ulama, and they all responded very similarly, although there were degrees of how they responded. I'll share a few questions and answers that were given. One asked from Ayatollah Khamenei. They asked if someone was to do this in prayer, what is the ruling of such an action? He said this action does not invalidate the prayer, but it is makruh. Again, they asked Ayatollah Sistani. He asked if someone was to perform this in prayer, what ruling does it have? He also responded that doing this is makruh. So it doesn't invalidate, but it's something that it's not recommended to do. They asked Ayatollah Makarim Shirazi as well the same question, and he responded that this also has karahat. Some scholars have said that it doesn't have, it's not makruh, but at the same time, it shouldn't be considered a part of prayer. That means if a person does it with the intention that this is a part of qunut or a part of prayer, then this is something that becomes problematic. I thought the question and the issue was interesting in two respects. The first is because sometimes we see people do it in prayer. Again, it doesn't invalidate, so there isn't a necessity for a person to think that this is problematic and it's created a problem in the prayer. No. But an interesting point that was for me is sometimes we have narration, we have hadith that establishes a point, and what we try to do, or sometimes what we do naturally, is we try to generalize that concept and generalize that point into other aspects. And one of the details that we have in the discipline of fiqh in Islamic law is that a person has to be very conscious to understand the boundaries of what things are allowed and what things are not allowed in different circumstances and in different contexts. So this is just something for us to be conscious of. It doesn't mean that narrations are contradictory with one another, but at the same time, a person should be aware and careful that if they see one hadith that says one thing, that doesn't justify that in all circumstances and in all contexts that becomes correct. We see this a lot. A person believes in something, is acting some way, and then you ask them for what reason. Say, I've seen this hadith has made this point, and of course it's absolute, and hence I'm going to act as if it is absolute in all circumstances. And that's something that is not necessarily correct. So please be conscious of that, not only in issues of law, but even issues of belief. That just because we read one hadith or just because we read one issue, it doesn't necessarily mean that this holds true in every case and in absolute cases, inshallah. So we'll suffice with this. There are other points, inshallah, we'll make in the nights to come. I've selected a few other points to make, like we said last night. If anyone does have any questions or comments or suggestions of things that we see happening and we think it would be important and beneficial to discuss, please let us know, and we'll be more than happy to incorporate that, inshallah. Risala salawat ala Muhammad wa
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
Okay, inshallah, continuing with the main discussion. Last night we had an introductory discussion in helping us define how it is that we want to spend the times in these programs, and what sort of objectives do we have for ourselves in these gatherings, and specifically for the 10, 11, 12 nights that we are here in this holy month of Muharram, in these first 10 days. What are the objectives that we set specifically for this year, and what sort of approach should we have, should we be looking to have, and what are other approaches that are commonly practiced, and what problems and shortcomings do they have? So this is something that was discussed yesterday. We said we can have a cultural approach to these programs, we can have a sympathetic approach to these programs, and we can also have an educational and developmental approach to these programs, that we're here to try to learn something. And remember, the process of learning is a process that is continuous. At no point in a person's time should a person feel that they have learned everything and they know everything. Only when a person is connected to the knowledge of the divine, yes, in that case you say you're in unity with that knowledge, then there's no reason for a person to be instructed. Maybe in those circumstances, the reminders may be beneficial, but in any case, for someone like me that has much to learn, and my ignorances and the things that I don't know completely outnumber the things that I do know, it's perhaps beneficial for me to try to capitalize on an opportunity like this. For some of us, this may be the major time that I spend in my Islamic education, because realistically, if we look at how Islamic education operates, especially in this country, we have 2 or 3 times in the year that we have very continuous, consistent attendance, and we are in the mood, and we have committed to coming here. One of those times is Muharram, generally the first 10 days. Then we have the holy month of Ramadan, or at least the second half of it, and we have Arba'in. And there are different occasions sprinkled throughout the year, but for the most part we have these 3 times. So if the majority of our Islamic education is going to be coming from these 3 periods in the year, it's unfortunate for us to let one of them, one of the more important of them, kind of pass by, for us not to have objectives for yourself. So whether it's within the program and the discussions that are being discussed within the program or outside of that, make sure we have something that is scheduled, that I know this is my objective for this year. And before I define my objectives, let me have a reflection on what is it that I've achieved thus far, and how is it that I can better myself. And every person should do that personally for themselves, and it shouldn't necessarily always be a general thing. at the next stage, if it's possible, as a community, we can sit down and assess those things. I think it would be very beneficial, but that's a discussion for another time. We stated last night that we'd like for our discussions to revolve around Nahj al-Balagha, and specifically the 31st letter that is found in Nahj al-Balagha. We made some introductory points last night. What we'll do is we'll review just a few of them very briefly for those who are not present. I thought perhaps it would be a good idea to have some of the points that we'd like to make on the projector. Perhaps we're going to have some of the hadith or even the text of the letter as well, just so it's easier to follow. I personally prefer something like this when I'm seeking instruction and I'm in class. I really appreciate someone that's able to put something tangible that I can see and follow. So in trying to assist my own deficiencies when it comes to being articulate and trying to help explain the points, I thought if we have the actual text here and the points here, it would be easier for us to follow. Next slide, inshallah. What we'll begin is an introduction to Nahj al-Balagha, which we discussed some of these points last night. Next slide. We spoke about what Nahj al-Balagha is. We said literally, if we look at the word, it's compounded of two parts, Nahj and Balagha. Nahj means a path, a clear path, or to make a path clear, and Balagha is the eloquence of a person's speech, or to be articulate, or the impact that a person's words and sayings can have. So what is Nahj al-Balagha? Literally, that's what it means. But what is it? It's a collection of the most eloquent sayings of Amir al-Mu'minin alayhi salatu wasalam. And we said this was authored by Sharif al-Radi. And his intention was to try to compile and collect these sayings of the Imam. And this was compiled in the year 400 after Hijrah. Next slide. We talked about who Sharif al-Radi is. Again, very briefly, we're going through these. His full name, Abu al-Hasan Muhammad ibn Hussein ibn Ahmad. Again, commonly known as Sharif al-Radi or as-Sayyid al-Radi. And he was born in the year 359 after Hijrah in Baghdad. And we discussed that he's the brother of Sayyid al-Murtada, Alam al-Huda, and Sayyid al-Radi is the younger brother of Alam al-Huda, and they were both students of Sheikh Mufid, among other instructors. And finally, he passed away the year 406 at the young age of 47. He's buried in Karbala. Next slide. As to what makes Nahj al-Balagha a special book. Okay, this is perhaps maybe not a very important point to make within this circle of Shias that are very familiar with Nahj al-Balagha and the importance that it holds. But the reason why I feel like including some of these discussions, it helps us understand the mindset of other people and people of other schools of thought that may not necessarily share the same understanding as what we have. You'd be surprised when you talk to people outside of the realm of those who are familiar with the works of Ahlul Bayt alayhi salatu wasalam, you'll find that their understanding is very, very elementary, and there's a lot of misunderstanding and misrepresentation when it comes to things like this. So don't necessarily think that, yes, Nahj al-Balagha, everyone knows it's Amir al-Mu'minin alayhi salatu wasalam, it's perfect, it's great. No, not everyone knows that. Just even as in other more basic and elementary beliefs, such as the unity of the Holy Quran, that we believe that the Quran is one and all of the Qurans that exist are the same, and it's the same Quran that was revealed to the Prophet. You'd be surprised if you're not familiar. Many people of other schools of thought believe that the Ja'fari school of thought has a separate Quran, which is different from the common orthodox, mainstream, authentic Quran. If you haven't come in that sort of a situation where a person or you are confronted by that point, know that many people believe this. And it doesn't mean it's right, it's actually not right, it's incorrect. But it's important for us to address these issues. Like we said last night, we want to be representatives of these teachings, representatives of the Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam. We need to do that, right? So if we want to do that, and we need to do that, we need to know what things are problems right now in society. If we think that everything is good and fine, and there are big problems that are happening right now, we're ignorant of that fact, we'll never go about trying to address that. So if we feel Nahj al-Balagha is misrepresented, then we have to have a proactive, constant agenda to try to remove misunderstandings and misinterpretations. What makes Nahj al-Balagha special, and why do we regard it, or some regard it, to be the next important book after the Holy Quran, and alongside many other books of hadith that we have? Many people regard it as being that. In two aspects, generally, Nahj al-Balagha is revered. The first, of course, we said is linguistically. Balagha, we said, talks about being eloquent and beautiful in speech. I've shared two comments that are made by two very, very important people that I think we need to be familiar with. And again, I've chosen these because of the commonalities that exist between our faith and our brothers and sisters of other schools of thought, that these individuals are people who are respected and revered within those communities as well. The first is Ibn Abil Hadid, which is a famous, very famous 7th century Mu'tazili scholar, and he has a commentary on Nahj al-Balagha, which is very famous. The commentary or sharh of Ibn Abil Hadid on Nahj al-Balagha. So this is not a Shia or Ja'fari scholar, and this is the comment he's making among other comments that he makes throughout his commentary, and if I'm not mistaken, it's in 14 volumes. So it's not just one volume that he summarized a few points. It's very, very in-depth. This is a rough translation that I have. This is a comment that many people have made. This first sentence, truthfully, the words of Ali alayhi salatu wasalam are lower or inferior in rank than that of the Creator. That means Ali's words are they're not comparable with that of the Quran, because that's the word of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That is, of course, the most superior. So it's inferior to that, and it's lower to that in rank. But greater than any creation, or superior than the words of any other creation that has ever lived and has ever will live. This is a very, very big and grand statement to make for a person who doesn't necessarily follow the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam. Humanity has learned the art of speech and writing from him. Again, grand statement to make. And he continues, the fact that not even a 10th, rather a 20th of what has been recorded of the sayings of Ali has been recorded from any other companion of the Holy Prophet. Again, for him, this is a very interesting point. Of all the companions that the Holy Prophet has, and he's seeing Ali alayhi salam as another companion. Maybe not a normal companion, but a companion of the Holy Prophet, Sahaba. So why is it that this Sahaba has 20 times more narrations narrated from him, while other companions, in whatever context, don't even come close to that? And he makes his final point, says, don't think that the reason why Nabi ﷺ has been narrated more is because he was the most eloquent in his speech. He says, no. There were other eloquent people, other linguists, other poets that existed during that time. So it wasn't that he was superior only in this respect, and people liked to hear him and listen to him, and hence they recorded it. No. It's because of the content and the way that he presents it, that he says his word, his statements are superior to that of anyone that I've seen. Companion or non-companion. The second is from Sheikh Muhammad Abdo, or Al-Imam Muhammad Abdo, again, a very famous 19th century Egyptian scholar and mufti. So he was fairly recent. If I'm not mistaken, he passed away year 1905. So not too far from us. He was also an individual that in reading in his preface to Nahj al-Balagha, he explains how he was also completely ignorant of the existence of such a book. This is a grand scholar now, okay? It's not just some guy or some Muslim or some, no. This is a grand scholar that reached the stage of becoming a mufti. This is not a low level that everyone today can become a mufti. No, this is a very, very high level, highly respected level for a person to achieve in scholarship. This person is saying that there was a point in my time that I was learning out, but I didn't know anything about Nahj al-Balagha. I didn't even know such a book existed, because no one had ever told him about it. And that should tell us, this should be a sign for us that, look, even within scholarship of other schools of thought, they may not necessarily be familiar. So I'm making these points not because it's nice to say them, because it's important for us to know that even scholars, not scholars or people that so-called scholars that they read one book or two books and then they go and become the imam of a masjid. No, this is a person who actually has qualifications of being a scholar. He says that I didn't know of this and I learned about this later in life. In the preface of his commentary, he states, amongst all people that speak the Arabic language, there doesn't exist any person who doesn't believe that the words of Ali alayhi salam after the Holy Quran and after the narrations of the Holy Prophet are the most honorable, eloquent, and meaningful of statements. Again, look at how they have positioned these statements of Ali alayhi salam. Okay, and these are people that are not Shia. These are people who are not lovers of the Ahlul Bayt like we are, right? We're the best of lovers. But these people, when they have even the smallest of taste of the teachings of the Ahlul Bayt, you'll find they have this sort of a reaction. So this is the effect that it can have on a person when they become familiar with something as grand as Nahj al-Balagha.
The same experience can be said for people who may not necessarily be Muslim and have not have experiences with the Holy Quran. Give them a copy of the Quran. They haven't seen it, right? They may have heard a lot of things about the Quran today, post 9/11 world, but if you ask them, have you read the Quran? Most of them will say no. Or if they say yes, usually it's selected verses, and those selected verses are trying to paint Islam in a negative light. So give them a copy of the translation of the Holy Quran and have them read it. If they're really a person looking for the truth, you'll find that there will be an impact on them that is invaluable. And the same thing can happen with Nahjul Balagha. So this is something that we need to be pushing, okay? And to push that before a person tries to promote an idea, they need to understand it themselves. If we have elementary understandings of the Quran and we're trying to encourage our non-Muslim colleagues, friends, acquaintances to become familiar with the Quran, if they ask us a question, we're not going to know because we don't read it ourselves, right? So Nahjul Balagha the same way. We first need to become scholars of this. We need to become familiar with this, and Nahjul Balagha needs to become a part of who we are, and we need to resonate these meanings and these teachings, and then people will be attracted by that. When they see that behavior within you, say, where did you learn this? Who taught you this? What book taught you this? You tell them Nahjul Balagha. You give them a copy, and the rest is history. Next slide. So the first aspect that makes Nahjul Balagha special is linguistically. It's a very nice work of art. The second is in its comprehensiveness. Comprehensiveness meaning that if you look at different works of art and different works of poetry or different great works, written works, you'll find generally that although they are very great and they are revered, most of them are limited in the scope of what they're trying to discuss or what topics or disciplines they're trying to discuss. Very seldomly do we have a work that has been written that has this sort of comprehensive nature, that it's not only talking about one thing, it's talking almost about everything. I've made a few points here. This is not because I come from an Iranian background and hence I have a liking only to Iranian poetry, but these are just some examples of poets that we have in the Farsi language, because I'm not familiar that much with Arabic and Urdu languages, so please don't take this as a disrespect or a sign of disrespect. But these are some examples and other examples of people that we have that have written great works of art when it comes to Islamic teachings. Examples of Hafiz, Sa'di, Ferdowsi, Mawlavi, and others, and they all have their works of their own, and all of them are great. But if you pay attention to them, you'll see that none of these have the comprehensiveness that a book like Nahjul Balagha or the Holy Quran has. They're well known for being very, very strong in one or a couple of aspects, and that's it. So when the book is talking about issues of spirituality, metaphysics, they're great in that respect. But don't expect to find principles of social justice in there. Don't expect to find principles of governance in there. No, it's a book of spirituality. It's a book of behavior. So all of them are limited in that sense. What makes Nahjul Balagha really something that is miraculous is that not only is it a great work of art linguistically, but what the Holy Imam discusses in there is something that really has not been seen before. That the variety of topics that are discussed in that form really makes it something that is amazing. And I just put a few points here of the discussions that are of course there. They include these but are not limited to them. Theological discussions, discussions relating to supplication and worship, government, politics, and justice, the Ahlul Bayt and their leadership, admonition, materialism, bravery, and courage, prayer, supplication, social principles, and spirituality, and also different personalities of people that are there. So this is something that you generally will not find in one book or one work of an individual that's been able to write something so beautiful and so eloquent. Next slide. A few points that we want to end with, that some of them we made these before. We said that Nahjul Balagha is not a work or the only work that's looking to compile the entirety of the Holy Imam's statements. We've said this, and it's important for this reason, that Sharif Radi only wanted to collect the most eloquent of these statements here. And again, I bring the example from famous scholar Mas'udi, and he writes in this book, Muruj al-Dhahab, in the second volume, translated as the Meadows of Gold. He writes that the amount of sermons that have been narrated from the Holy Imam are much greater than those found in Nahjul Balagha. He's not making a direct comparison, but for us to know that Nahjul Balagha is only a portion of them. He says, of the sermons that Ali alayhi salam has recited in various venues and in different circumstances, that people have recorded or memorized, depending on how you interpret the text, people have recorded and memorized more than 480 sermons. So how many sermons do we have in Nahjul Balagha? 239. Okay? 239 sermons, and Mas'udi is saying that 480 have been recorded. Mas'udi is much before Sharif al-Radi. And then he gives some points. These sermons were delivered naturally and without any notes or any previous preparation. So just naturally the Imam would begin to speak. Why? Because his speech and his discussions are that are connected to divine knowledge and divine wisdom. So when he speaks, it's not something that he's researched and he's trying to put things together and say, this sounds good, I think this will sound good. Like what I have to do, just to try to compile things that I think are interesting. No, the Imam naturally goes there because he's speaking the word of God. This is important now, okay? Because when you're talking about the personality of the Imam, when you're trying to compare him with other Sahaba as a Sahaba, people are not like this. Normal people don't come and naturally start speaking. And when they naturally do start speaking, they're not as eloquent and their words are generally not as well thought out or as meaningful. Any one of us right now, we ask you to come up and talk for 5 minutes about whatever you want. 5 minutes. On a scale of 1 to 10. You'll do much better than I do, but generally it won't rate higher than 6 or 7. If you want to be very generous. Right? Because many of us may not be public speakers. It's fine. But even if we were, with no preparation, a person asks you to come and speak about something that's so grand in its meaning, what are you going to say? And how are you going to say something that's going to make sense? And now look at how the Imam comes and presents it. Look at the text and look at the words with this intention. That a person just stands up and starts saying these things, right? We have khutbah from Amir al-Mu'minin that he recites an entire sermon without using any letter that has a dot, right? It's miraculous. This is not a work of someone who is just great in his practice. You can't just do that. This shows that there's some sort of divine inspiration there. Again, when you're trying to introduce the Ahlul Bayt, people need to know about these things because they don't know about them. They think he was Sahaba, the other guy was Sahaba too, and then they had a dispute, and so radiallahu anhu. Let's just kind of like, let's put that, it's in the past, let's not keep going back in the past, and let's look at the present and the future, brother. But it's important for us to know these things. It's not Sahaba, no. Okay, so it isn't looking to collect those, only those that they think are important. Next slide. Again, we said Nahj al-Balagha is not the only work of Amir al-Mu'minin or work that has compiled this. We said this, Ghurral al-Hikam is also a very good work, and we also shared Nahj al-Sa'ada fi Mustadrak Nahj al-Balagha, that the original intention, if I'm not mistaken, by Sheikh Mahmoudi was to try and show the citations and resources of Nahj al-Balagha, because we discussed this. We said that one of the criticisms that exists in Nahj al-Balagha, and many of the brothers of Ahlul Sunnah wal Jama'ah also have this criticism, and also within Shia circles, they say Nahj al-Balagha is something that has no citations, no resources. No, you don't know if it's true or not. It's something that's nice, but I can't say that this is the Imam's words. So there have been scholars that have gone about doing this research to prove to us that it's not like that. Sometimes we hear these things and it's really saddening to hear that. Okay? Oh, this dua, I don't know, this dua is not authenticated. It's not authentic. This dua is weak, it's authentic. Okay, well, but perhaps it was like that originally, and this is a misunderstanding that may exist within our circles, but of course they're scholars and their job is to try to research these things. And what has happened, a lot of people have just kind of written on Nahj al-Balagha, it's nice, I'll read it, but I don't know if it's the Imam's words. Okay, the scholars have come to research this to give some sort of assurance to you and I to make sure that what we're reading is also authentic. So, in the works that have provided those sources, the first one we said Nahj al-Sa'ada, and the second entitled Masadir Nahj al-Balagha wa Asanidih by Sayyid Abdul Zahra al-Husayni al-Khatib. This is also a great work that's been done, and it shows all of the resources and citations that exist for each one of the statements that are made. Each letter, each sermon, each wisdom, word of wisdoms that are said, they have all been cited and researched. Okay, next slide. So let's start the letter itself, and I kind of didn't keep track of time. If you can let me know when we have like 5-10 minutes, inshallah, then I'll conclude. We have time, okay. Okay, so this is letter 31. And this is how it starts. If you've seen Nahj al-Balagha and each of the sermons that we have and each of the letters that we have, one of the things that Sayyid al-Radi has done, and he's added in the context in which this has been said. So like if it's a letter, who's the letter being written to? Why is the letter being written? In what circumstance has the letter been written to? So this is the title or the note that Sharif Radi puts in front of the 31st letter. ومن وصية الله عليه السلام للحسن بن علي عليه السلام كتبها إليه بحاضرين or حاضرين عند انصرافه من صفين. So this is a letter or a will, wasiyah, that's written by Amir al-Mu'minin alayhi salatu wasalam to his son, Imam Hassan alayhi salatu wasalam, after he had encamped and he had set up camp in a place called Hadirin or Hadirain, as he was returning from the battle of Siffin. So this is the context and the time in which Imam is writing this letter. He's not sitting in his house, he's not very comfortable. After he's engaged in battle, now he's returning, and this is the type of letter he's writing to his son as a will to him, an instruction to him, an advice to him. Next slide. Inshallah, we'll get through a few introductory points tonight, and then we'll continue tomorrow, and we'll have some points of reflection. If you can please spend some time to reflect on them, I think it would be beneficial to make the discussions a little bit more efficient. Before we continue, please recite salawat ala Muhammad wa Okay, of the few introductory points I want to make, next slide, that it's nice to know that of all of the letters that we have in Nahj al-Balagha, there are two very, very famous ones, and these are very long letters that exist in Nahj al-Balagha. The longest one is one that we're all familiar with, and a majority of humanity is familiar with because of its greatness, really, is the letter that Amir al-Mu'minin alayhi salatu wasalam wrote to Malik al-Ashtar when he became the governor of Egypt. So that's the longest letter that we have in Nahj al-Balagha. The second is this letter here, this letter 31. So just to say that it's very long, we're probably not going to finish it, we may not even get close to finish it, but this can be a good first step for us to become introduced to that, get the ball rolling, and then we have all of Muharram and all until Arba'in, we have a good 40 days, right? 40 days should be more than enough time. Even if we read one sentence a night, a few sentences a night should be sufficient for us to be able to complete the letter. Okay, so where has this letter been recorded? So this is something that has to do with the sources and citations. Again, the reason why I say this, you don't think it's repetitive, you keep saying this around, this is boring, I don't want to hear this anymore. You already said it's authentic and it's validated, who cares? I'm telling you, each of these letters you'll find people finding fault. So it's important for you to know exactly where this has been narrated and who has cited this. When a person says, I can't know if this is true or not, you can quickly say, no, I know this. It's found in this book, that book, this book, that book. This person has said it, that person has said it. Okay. According to the book Masadr Nahj al-Balagha that we said is one of the more important books that we have, this letter can be found in a number of different places, and it's important. He divided it into two parts. First, the letter is found in many works of scholars that preceded Sharif al-Radi. So he said, where has he gotten these from? He's gotten it from books of other people that have cited their sources. So a few examples, 3 examples from 3 very big people and big books that we have that we all are familiar with or should be familiar with. The first is from Sheikh al-Kulayni. We're all familiar with al-Kulayni, right? His famous book of Al-Kafi. Al-Kafi, one of the 4 main books of narration that we regard to be most authentic in Shia schools of thought. Not Sahih. We don't consider any of our narration books to be fully authentic, okay? It's another theological point. We don't have as-Sahih or Sahih, Kafi, no. Every narration that we have needs to be independently analyzed and critiqued. And it's okay to criticize it, it's no problem. That's a part of scholarship. For us to completely wrap something and say, this is Sahih, it's perfect, there's nothing wrong with it, and then what happens is then you'll find a lot of the problems that do exist. And this is one of the problems that does exist in Sahih Sitta, the 6 books that have been regarded as Sahih by Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah. They have many issues with them, and many of them have been revised and edited. So if a book is supposed to be Sahih from the beginning, it's Sahih. Like Quran, if it's Sahih, there's no editing that should be happening. There are no revisions that should be happening. So in Shia school of thought, again, this is an ideological point that we have. We don't speak in absolutes. This is perfect and there's nothing wrong with it. No. Maybe half of the hadith is authentic and half of it is not. This is something that if you start researching within hadith sciences, you'll find that it's like this. One sentence can be authentic, the second is unknown. So again, don't think that a hadith in its entirety either it's correct or not correct. So it's found in Sheikh Khulani's Ar-Rasail, not in Al-Kafi, but in Ar-Rasail. Again, in the book Tuhaful Uqul, a very important that we have of hadith, Tuhaful Uqul and Al Rasul from Sheikh Al-Harrani, Ibn Shu'ba Al-Harrani. And finally from Sheikh Saduq, which we're all familiar with as well, one of our great scholars. We have great books from him. Again, of the 4 main hadith books that we have, Al-Kafi, the second is from Sheikh Saduq what? No, Rasail was Sheikh Khulani. Yeah, it's written, Man la yahduru al-faqih. The second book of main book of narrations that we have. Man la yahduru al-faqih, and the last two belong to Tahdhib and Istibsar, written by Sheikh, I'll give you that much of it, Sheikh Tusi. Sheikh Tusi. So these are the four main books. These should be our Sihah. If they're going to be Sihah, they're not though, but these are the four books that we're all meant to be familiar with because they're the best of the best. And they're the first rate and first class when it comes to our books of narration. So Al-Kafi, Man La Yahdur Al-Faqih, Tahdhib Al-Ahkam, and Istibsar. Okay. So, Sheikh Saduq has narrated portions of this letter, not from beginning to end, not in its entirety, but portions of this can be found in Man La Yahdur Al-Faqih. Okay, and of the people who are after Sayyid al-Radi that have also brought this, can be found in, again, Sayyid ibn Tawbus that we're all familiar with, right? His famous book that has to do with issues of tragedy of Imam Hussein alayhi salam is Luhuf, right? Luhuf of Sayyid ibn Tawbus. Okay. He narrates this in Kashf al-Muhajjah. So these are some sources that have recorded this letter and have brought this 31st letter, which is a letter written from the Holy Imam to his son. Okay, next slide, and inshallah we'll end here. So what's the purpose of the letter? What is the Imam trying to accomplish with this letter? And the title that Sharif al-Radi brought, we kind of had an understanding of what it is. Wasiyah, it's a will. Wasiyah we all know, right? We all have wasiyah. As parents, we wasiyah all the time to our children, right? We give them advice, we give them instruction, we tell them that this is how life is, this is how life isn't. When I was your age, I thought this, and that, and now that I'm an old man or old woman, I learned that life is not really like this. So, oh my son, oh my daughter, know that life is like this. So you're trying to teach them of the realities of life. So we advise our children, we advise our youngers and sometimes our elders on issues, our experiences of life and what we think life really is. And also we have more formal forms of wasiyah. We have wills, right? We have legal documents. A will, all of this hard work that you put in to acquire wealth, you want to make sure that the state or the government just doesn't come and take it. So you give it to your children, you give it to your loved ones. And also we have Islamic wills, right? Everyone should have a will because they don't know when death will come. And when you don't have a will present, you don't have a will prepared, what happens? When death does come, then it leaves your family with not only all that grief to deal with, but they have to figure out who you owed money to and where your possessions are and what sort of outstanding activities that need to be accomplished. So one of the things to take away from this point, first of all, is you should have a will. Legally, you should have one. Islamically, you should have one. The second thing is, what different types of will should we have? Is it all about, I have this property, this goes to this person. I have this money, it goes to that person. Is Imam doing this right now? He's trying to say, like, Imam Hassan alayhi salam, know that, like, I have some money buried over here and this is for you, so go get it. Let's see. This is something we're trying to see. What is the Imam, what's important to him right now that he's returning from war? So what he's trying to do is he's trying to give advice and counsel to his son on what he believes to be the method of living a successful life and a life that is accepted and pleases Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Just to give us an overview of what the letter looks like, some scholars have done this. I found this division in the work of Ayatollah Karim Shirazi. There's a series that he oversaw with a number of different scholars that they have provided commentary on Nahj al-Balagha. It's written in Farsi, I don't think it's been translated, but it's called Payam-e-Imam, right? The message of the Imam. And pretty much what it is just a commentary on Nahj al-Balagha, and it's very easy to read. If you can understand Farsi, even if you can't understand it very much, it's not very difficult read. You can read it, it's very brief, you can go through this commentary. And what he did was, for this letter, he said we can divide the points that are made and discussions that are made into 30 different parts. So we'll break these sections up one by one, and we'll try to get through as many as we can. And I'll give us some sort of an order, inshallah, as to what we're discussing, and then we'll move from one point to another. So tomorrow night we're going to get into the first section, and the first section discusses 2 points, which kind of seems unimportant, but the way the Imam presents it really makes it something special. How the Imam introduces himself as the person who's writing the will, and how he introduces his son as the person who's meant to be the recipient of the will. He not only writes who he is, but he also characterizes himself and characterizes his son. If you remember the context of what he's trying to accomplish by writing this will, this is also very, very important for us to study and learn from. The second section, the Imam explains his intentions as to why he's writing this will, and what, if this will is different from formal types of wills that we have. Then in sections 3 to 10, we'll have discussions like these found here, and 11 to 20 the same way, 21 to 30 the same way. There isn't necessarily a logical sort of method of discussion. They go from point to point. There is unity, of course, in it, but it isn't necessarily that he starts at one point and he kind of gradually moves up to something else. So there's a lot of variety in what he's discussing, but all of them fall under the umbrella of trying to help his son understand what it means to live a successful life and a life that is pleasing to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. How much time do we have, so I'll know whether we should continue? My apologies, I should have just kept time. I think we're almost done, right?
About 10 minutes.
Okay, really? So it looks like we have plenty of time. So inshallah, just for us to continue, make a few final points, let's recite Salawat ala Muhammad. Okay, one more slide to go through. Inshallah, there are a few points that are important, and which is why we're having these introductory discussions. Some disagreement that does exist. Next slide, still introductory points, okay. Within the introductory points, the last question we want to ask is, who is the real recipient of the will or of this letter? So with the title that Shaykh Radi put, he says, Lil Hasan alayhi salatu wasalam. So he's already made it clear that the will is for Imam Hassan. Okay, so of all of the people that have narrated this letter, Allama to study in his commentary on this letter, he says that we have 6 different independent narrations of this letter. In 5 of them have stated that the recipient of the letter or the addressee of the letter is Imam Hassan alayhi salam. One person has said, or one chain has said, that it was written to another son of Amir al-Mu'minin alayhi salatu wasalam, Muhammad al-Hanafiya. Okay. So there's difference of opinion here, that some people are very, very insistent that the letter wasn't written for Imam al-Hassan, it was written for Muhammad al-Hanafiya. And there's a reason why they do that. And the reason why this disagreement exists is because of some of the statements that happen to come in the will and in the letter. So as we start to read tomorrow night, and inshallah for tomorrow night, so we want to get through the first section. The first section, when you start, the letter will start like this, Min al-Walid al-Fan. It starts there and you read all the way up to wa Khalifat al-Amwat. Okay? So for tomorrow you'll have about maybe 10 or 12 sentences to read. So that's the first section of how the Imam introduces himself and how the Imam introduces the recipient. Okay? Read that. Read that, and tomorrow when you come, see what kind of an understanding you had of who's writing the letter and who's receiving the letter. And see if it does not seem contradictory to what you understood of the Imam and what you understood of Imam al-Hasan alayhi salatu. So there's certain ways that the Imam characterizes himself and characterizes the recipient that doesn't sit well. Okay, and we're not going to discuss them right now, we'll get to them tomorrow. We want you to read it. Okay, read it and think about it. Say, is this something that is within line of what is understood in Shia ideology and belief of imamat? Or is this something that it seems like it's, first of all, not authentic, and if it is authentic, it can't be talking about an infallible imam the way that he's talking about these people. So what happens, those people, when assessing the letter, they read these things and said it's not possible for this letter to have been addressing an infallible imam. So it has to be another person. The other person is the other son of Amir al-Mu'minin, Muhammad al-Hanafiya. He's not infallible, so it's no problem. And they brought other points as well, and other questions they posed as well. They said if one imam is writing a letter to another imam, 2 questions a person can ask. First of all, they're both imams, right? So if both of them are connected to divine knowledge, and both of them are connected to the knowledge of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, so what is one going to tell the other that they don't know? Both of them are the same, and they're both connected to the same source of knowledge. كُلُّهُمْ نُورٌ وَاحِدٌ. So what is one person going to tell the other that they don't know? They should all know because they're connected to the knowledge of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So it should help us understand that it's not writing to Imam al-Hasan. The second point is, if it was the will of one imam to another, the imam is going to talk about those secret issues that have to do with imamat. And those things that are very delicate, those are private. They're private from one imam to another. When one imam is trying to instruct or trying to prepare the other imam, they don't come tell you and I what they tell their sons or the imam, the next imam. They tell each other in privacy. So why is it that this letter was written and now it's available for everyone to read and critique? And no, so it should have been held private. So because it's not private and it's within our possession, then we know that the person who's written the letter it's not for Imam al-Hasan, it's for Muhammad al-Hanafiya. In any case, keep this in mind when you do read that introduction, that first section, all the way up to Amma Ba'd, from the beginning all the way up to Amma Ba'd, which is perhaps one paragraph long, depending on whatever the print is. Read that and see what sort of understanding you have on it tomorrow. Inshallah, we'll ask if people will be comfortable to share their thoughts. Maybe we'll spend a few minutes in the beginning just to ensure that everyone has an opportunity to read. It won't take a long time. It'll take you maybe 5 minutes. It'll take you 2 minutes. Just read the translation if you want to. And then share your thoughts, inshallah, tomorrow. And we'll try to see if we can come to an understanding of what's being said and why it's being said. And we can have a better understanding of what points the Imam is trying to make, inshallah, in this letter. So we'll leave it at that, inshallah. We'll begin the actual text of the letter tomorrow night. And we'll continue section by section. We'll try to identify approximately how far we'll get every night, so you'll have your readings daily, and then we'll inshallah discuss those sections as well. We'll inshallah end with some musiba, and we'll go for our matam inshallah. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ala. It's possible to just dim the lights and turn off the projector for us to be able to concentrate. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
عجل فرجهم لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. صلى الله عليك يا أبا عبد الله. صلى الله عليك يا ابن رسول الله. صلى الله عليك يا ابن أمير المؤمنين وابن سيد المرسلين. السلام عليك يا ابن فاطمة سيدة نساء العالمين. السلام عليك يا قتيل الله وابن قتيله. السلام عليك يا وتر الله المغفور في السماوات والأرض. السلام عليك يا ثار الله وابن ثاره. السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله وعلى الأرواح التي حلت بفنائك. عليك مني جميعا سلام الله أبدا ما بقيت وبقي الليل والنهار ولا جعله الله آخر العهد مني لزيارتكم. السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين. Our Master, O Aba Abdullah, we're all here tonight with this intention to show you that we are here in support of you, in support of your message, in support of your legacy. Hussein, we want to show you that if we were present during the day of Ashura, if we were present when you were exiting Medina on your way to Mecca, we were present in your journey from Mecca to Karbala, Ya Hussein, if we were informed that you were embarking on this journey, we would surely have accompanied you, O our Imam. We want to show you that we won't be of the people who would have abandoned you, who would have left you and your family alone, the family of the Holy Prophet, the family of Amir al-Mu'mineen, Lady Fatima. Ya Hussein, we want you to know that by coming here we are pledging our allegiance to you. that if you were to appear and if your representatives were to appear, we would be there to support them and to support you. Ya Hussein, if I was in Kufa during the time that you sent your representatives, that if I was one of those people who had called your name and had invited you to be my leader, I would stay true to my word and I wouldn't abandon you. Many people wrote letters to the Holy Imam inviting him to Kufa. They claimed that they wanted the Imam to be their leader and governor. But after these thousands of letters were written, the Holy Imam sends his representative, Muslim ibn Aqil, to Kufa. When Muslim first arrives, all the people surround him. They are happy that the representative of the Imam has come. They are excited that the Holy Imam will come and lead them. But after a short time, that the circumstances changed, and these enemies and oppressors came and threatened people. One by one, Muslim sees that the people are leaving his side. They say, Muslim, after leading prayers, they say a large group of people were present as he started leading Maghrib prayers. And after the end of Isha prayers, Muslim turns around and sees that he's alone. Ya Hussein, if today your representative was sent to us, we would accept him. We would make sure we supported him. We wouldn't abandon him. Ya Hussein, as I make this statement, I remember that your representative is among us. I remember that there is a leader and imam among us. I remember that I also have an imam of my time. I also remember that your grandson, Imam al-Mahdi, is also present among us. When he comes and when he sends his representatives, what sort of a reaction will I have? Will I be there to accept him, or will I abandon him when I'm pressured and threatened? Ya Sahib al-Zaman, Ya Abu Abdullah, forgive me for my shortcomings. I want you to know that I truly have love for you. When I call out to you, it's because I truly love you. It's because I want you to come and lead me. But what can I do? That I have weak faith and I haven't prepared myself. When the troubles of life come, I forget you. I forget the allegiance that I pledged to you. Muslim ibn Aqil is now in Kufa alone. But his worry isn't that he's been left alone. Muslim's worry is not that his children and his family are accompanying Hussein to Kufa. If it was me, maybe I would think, now that these people have abandoned me, my family is coming with Hussein. If they come here, they'll be in trouble. But Muslim isn't thinking like this. All he's thinking about is my imam, my leader, my master. I sent a letter to Hussein telling him that the people here will accept him. What will I do when Hussein comes with his family, his children, the women? What will happen to them when they come to a city full of hypocrites? They say Muslim was surrounded, he fought a brave fight, but he was finally captured, beaten, and taken to the roof of Darul Imara. As Muslim stood there, it is narrated that he said his shahadatain, and right before he was killed and his body thrown down from the top of the building, they say that Muslim sent his salams in regards to his imam. In those last moments, Muslim connected, Assalamu alayka ya Aba Abdullah. Muslim achieves shahada. They've taught us in Islamic teachings that it's mustahab to say salam to a person. But once the salam is said, it's wajib and mandatory to reply. One was the reply of Muslim to come. They say Abu Abdullah heard the salam of Muslim, but his reply didn't come on the day that Muslim was martyred.
They say the salam in return of the Imam happened on the day of Ashura, when Hussein is surrounded and left alone. That's when he calls out, Ya Muslim, Ya Hani, where are you to see that no one is left to protect the family of the Prophet? Ya Muslim, you are no longer here to protect your Imam. I have been left alone. They say that the news of the martyrdom of Muslim, when it reached the ears of the holy Imam, he began to cry and weep. He informs the family of Muslim ibn Aqil. He asks for the daughter of Muslim, a young daughter, a young girl. He brings this young daughter in his lap and he begins to caress this young girl. This girl then realizes that something had happened. She asks Hussein, Ya Hussein, what has happened to my father? Has something happened? What am I going to do if my father has died and is killed? Abu Abdullah said, oh my little girl, don't worry about that. If your father has been martyred, I will be your father now. I will be here to look after you. But on the day of Ashura, who was there to caress the children of Hussein? Who was there to caress the daughters of Hussein? When they saw the body of Hussein on the fields being trampled, there was no one there to console and caress the bodies of the little girls of Hussein. وَسَيَعْلَمُ الَّذِينَ ظَلَمُوا أَيَّ مُنْغَلَبٍ يَنْغَلِبُونَ. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم نسألك وندعوك باسمك العظيم العظم العز الجل الأكرم. إلهي بحق الحسين يا الله 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 يا رحمن يا رحيم يا مقلب القلوب ثبت قلوبنا على دينك. وفنا يا قاضي الحاجات ويا كافي المهمات إنك مجيب الدعوات إنك على كل شيء قدير. اللهم عجل لوليك الفرج. اللهم عجل لوليك الفرج. اللهم عجل لوليك الفرج والعافية والنصر. جعلنا من خير أنصاره وعوانه والمستشهدين بين يديك. Ya Allah, on this blessed night, by the right of Imam Hussein alayhi salam and his companions, and by the right of his companion Muslim ibn Aqil, those companions that were slaughtered even before Muharram had started, Muslim ibn Aqil, Hani ibn Urwa, among others. By the right of these individuals, by the right of Hussein ibn Ali, we ask you that on this blessed night, our most important request is that you hasten the reappearance of our holy Imam, inshallah. Ya Allah, we ask you to give a good life and a long life and good health to all of our scholars, all of our maraja, all of those who serve this religion. Ya Allah, we ask you to make us, make our families, make our children of the true lovers and true followers of Imam Hussein alayhi salam, to make us of his true companions and the companions of his grandson, the holy Imam of our time. Ya Allah, we ask you to bring good health and a speedy recovery to all of those who are suffering with illness and sickness, especially our sister that we recited Amma Yujib for, inshallah, and all the Muslimin and Muslimat around the world. Ya Allah, we ask you to remove oppression and hardship from all of the Muslimin, all of those who are being oppressed around the world, especially our Shia brothers and sisters in all parts of the world these days. They're being oppressed. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to remove this oppression and to destroy the enemies of Islam sooner rather than later. Ya Allah, we ask you finally to make our majalis, make our gatherings, make our community, make our families to be families, community, majalis that you were pleased with and has the blessing of the holy Imam Abu Abdullah and Hussein Sayyid al-Shuhada and the holy Imam of our time, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Ya Hussein. 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 Ya Hussein.